Welcome to the GWJEP Roundtable series. Today's topic, we will be talking about ethics and AI, particularly ethics and authorship, as well as the transparency in using AI to contribute to authorship. Um, this discussion will center around scholarly and creative works and as well as to what degree an author has a moral or ethical obligation to disclose or identify AI in the usage of a work. And I would just like to confirm that everyone in the discussion consents to this being recorded, and also lay out a few ground rules. Each of us will speak in turns and try not to interrupt each other. We will disagree with ideas, not people. And if you reference a claim, name the source or flag it as an opinion if you do not have a source. And try not to call out anything too personal or confidential about the participants in this meeting. And now we will introduce each other. My name is Savannah Aleksic, and I'm a content committee member at the GWJEP, and I use she, her pronouns. And Cecilia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, my name is Cecilia Gray. I am the managing editor for the George Washington Journal of Ethics and Publishing, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Claire Bianchi. I am the acquisitions lead for the GW Press, which is currently under development, and I use she, her pronouns.
Okay, and now you will each present your angle on this topic in around 1 to 2 sentences. So, what is your first, I guess you could say, blanket statement about AI and authorship? We can start with Cecilia.
When I think of AI and authorship, I think of the fact that AI is a tool. It utilizes human work to create new iterations of someone else's already existing idea. Because at the end of the day, it's artificial intelligence. So it's pulling on other people's intelligence to build its platform. So in that sense, authorship always has to be human in some way because it's based off of human intellectual property. True authors have the ability to be able to define their work's goals, to make decisions, and ultimately to take responsibility for the claims that they make and the creative direction that they go in. Whereas artificial intelligence really cannot meet that definition of authorship because it can assume that responsibility, the intent, or the accountability. So, in short, my stance is that authorship can and should only be defined if the originator can take full responsibility for the core idea and the format that their work was built on. AI can be a tool used to support that, but the core of an author's work should always come from their own intellectual property.
Hey, that's great. And Claire?
Yeah, thanks, Savannah. And I agree with Cecilia and in concept, but I think I kind of thought through it slightly differently, which is interesting. Instead of using tool, I thought of the term collaborator. I think when we think about how we produce scholarly work or creative work and who you bring in to help you bring a work to fruition, right? Whether it's your editor, whether it's your maybe someone who's helping you write behind the scenes. So, at what level and at what point you decide to grant attribution to those people, I think that's the same approach we should all be thinking about AI involvement. So, when we think about what is kind of altering the foundation and the fundamental meaning of the work you're creating. So to Cecilia's point of like the thought processes that are being made, the decisions that are being made into the final publication, I think wherever AI comes into play, it's effectively co-authoring that work. So I think in the end, the final point I'll make about this is that I think our kind of skill set around managing our AI tools and using them as co-authors is going to have to evolve over time to understand how we attribute work to AI, knowing that, to Cecilia's point, there is human knowledge and human research behind it, but how we manage the AI responses and bring those into human generated content, I think is going to become increasingly important when it comes to attributing authorship to humans and AI.
I think that's a really great point that you make. And I like that you both kind of have a different jumping off point from it, but there's still, it comes down to attribution. And so, jumping off of that, I have two main definitions or definitions of terms for authorship that we will utilize to stay coherent and connected in this conversation. And so for the first definition is from Georgia Institute of Technology. And that definition is authorship is a mechanism that enables those who made a significant intellectual contribution related to a scholarly work product to receive credit for that contribution. And then the other definition is from COPE, or COPE, the Committee on Publication Ethics. And this definition of authorship is that it can refer to individuals or groups that create an idea or develop the publication that disseminates that intellectual or creative work. And so now we can move into our main discussion. So the first question is what exactly counts as authorship when AI is involved? And more so, at what point would it be considered authorship if AI is involved?
I can jump in. Um, to Claire's point, I really appreciated that publishing centric perspective, especially of considering all the people who contribute to a published piece of work before it goes out into the public. Because you really do see the author's name on the article or the book, and you don't see the agent and the editor who were a part of the substantial developmental edits. You don't see the ghostwriters who are also a part of that substantial writing. Or normally you don't see those names. So that does bring into question of authorship even when we're considering humans. And I think sticking with my original statement, I believe that authorship comes down to the author's ability to fully take responsibility for the core intellectual property. So if it is their idea, authors often talk about things being their baby and their project that they've worked on and developed for who knows how long. If it is something that is really of their own core intellect that they receive help and resources to develop, but they did not have someone else, contribute substantial portions to it that they can no longer take responsibility for. That's what boils down to authorship. So when you're considering AI and that mix, it really becomes the point of, did you put a short sentence prompt into AI and say, can you write or maybe more than a sentence, but saying, here's my idea, here's what I want, write a 10-page article on this or whatever. And then the AI is really taking that and running with it. And even though you might have presented a short snippet of your idea, you did not put in the extreme intellectual property and the building of the research and the formatting of the words and all of that. So I think in that point, it really becomes the question of how much can you take ownership for and how willing are you to not disclose that AI was used. If it's the case and we have a lot of, less intelligent AI that's already in our mix of, our workflows for using Grammarly for spelling check and things like that. So if it is the case of AI helping to organize things, helping to polish things, but it really is the core work that you put in that's being affected, then I think authorship falls a lot more on the human in that instance.
So polishing rather than the actual creation.
Yeah, I think a lot of the platforms that I'm thinking of are a lot of generative AIs that people are utilizing to really like I put in a short prompt and you fleshed out the whole thing.
Hmm.
In which authorship really does become a question because the AI is only able to create that based off of the database of other people's works that's been fed and taught to it. So if you're not putting in that substantial base foundation that the AI is working off of, then it does, in my opinion, become a question of authorship.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great point. Claire, what do you think of this question?
Yeah, so I think we're at a pretty critical turning point in the industry with this question, like authorship when AI is involved. Just in it's a lot to swallow, but I think and it's the kind of overall landscape is going to be evolving so quickly that we all need to kind of keep up with it and understand kind of what the different layers of AI and authorship, what those kind of tiers might become. Like I've begun to start thinking about it in a way that like there's probably going to be a few camps of publishers or journals like us, right? Where like the GWU Journal of Ethics and Publishing might decide at some point to put a blanket statement and say, we will never use AI to create content, right? Like I think that's going to be one camp. I think there's going to be a second camp that will do what Cecilia is mentioning. We will only use AI to polish and improve original content. And then I think there's a third camp that might take that kind of modern perspective of we're working together with AI to create content, but we're telling you that we're doing it ahead of time. So be fair warned, that this is a contribution from AI, and at that point, you're almost co-authoring with the model providers, right? Like that's not even really um, human co-authorship. It's, this model was able to conduct the deep research and I put a opening and a conclusion on potentially. So that's like obviously the very extreme end of the spectrum. But I think if we're asking the question, what counts as authorship when AI is involved, I think there's levels to it now, unfortunately. And the definition is going to vary across different kind of standards and different ethical perspectives on what defining authorship entails in an age where you can generate content at the snap of a finger. So in my opinion, I would say that it's similar to Cecilia's perspective of if you are the ideator and you're taking significant time to curate responses from AI and you're really using it as a say what we call like a whiteboarding session, in a creative industry and not as a creator of new ideas, then I think, authorship can be granted to that ideator. But as soon as you start pulling directly from the responses without your own personal analysis or perspective, then it comes into question of what tier of authorship are you entering to my earlier point.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's actually a really nice segue into our next question, which is if readers don't know that AI was used, uh, what is the actual harm that could happen in undisclosed AI usage, or uh, who benefits and who loses in this situation? Is it the author? Is it the press? The general public? And feel free to play devil's advocate here and think, like, is there an actual harm in not disclosing AI? I would love to hear both of your ideas on this.
Yeah, I think that there is harm, in the same way that when an influencer endorses a product without disclosing their content was designed to be an ad to sell their viewers something, using AI and not disclosing that is problematic because at the end of the day, it erodes trust. What as authors, as creators, as anyone who's putting something out there in the world, you are doing that work on the basis of having an audience that you hope will trust you to have value in what you're saying and to have value in what you're providing them with. And so you're asking a lot from your audience and a lot from your readers to trust you. And so when you do something that harms that, it's really hard to regain their trust. And so not only does it harm their experience, it harms your reputation, and it harms, the future for the industry as a whole when people start to lose, they start to lose trust and they start to lose hope and they don't know what's true and what's not. And I think right now it's really lovely that we're at a point in time when we can kind of tell when things are AI created, especially when it comes to like images. But as things get more and more advanced, it's going to be harder to be able to discern that as just an average audience member who maybe doesn't know all of the different ways that AI can be used. And so I think that it's really important to build that framework and that foundation right now of just disclosing it, and then to continue that because I do think that it's harmful. And especially, I'm thinking of all the different ways that AI can be used, if it's used for advertisements, if it's used for, tech and things like that, if it's used in like the finance space and it's, you're using chat boxes now, so you're trying to contact your health provider or your bank or something, and they're using AI chat boxes. Like there's so many different ways that, AI can be used in different industries and how it can erode trust. And the reliability of the provider. But to bring things back into the publishing sphere, I think that when you, and I'm talking a lot about trust, but when you lose, when you damage that trust, it is referring to the fact that people might start to question if you are as skilled and as reputable as you claim to be. It might come across as you not being as knowledgeable about the topic, or even worst of all, that you don't respect the reader's own intelligence because you're kind of assuming that you can pull one over on your audience. And so those different things, like I said, damage your reputation, but it also damages the impact of what you could have written and you could have had majority authorship on, and it could have been something really valuable to present to the world. And now, because of, that lack of honesty, and transparency, then it's completely, negated. Uh,
Yeah, I like that lack of honesty and transparency. I think that's a really big topic for this discussion. And sorry to cut you off, but Claire, I would like to hear what what harm do you think it could cause if people don't disclose AI usage, especially in the publishing sphere, in as Cecilia said, in creation,
mhm.
from just creators in general? What harm can that cause in not disclosing who actually created the work?
Right. I think the harm comes down to, I mean, obviously the lack of transparency is concerning, but the ultimate result is like deception, right? Like I think from a publishing industry perspective, um, we're one of the industries that is held to a very high standard of integrity and honesty in terms of, always cite your sources, always verify, make sure you're attributing if you're doing a research article, you're attributing research and data correctly. So I think deceiving your readers into believing that a research paper or a novel or an article was created solely by a human when AI was involved can just kind of shatter the reputation, as Cecilia mentioned, of our industry. And it also kind of I think it's just a little bit heartbreaking for humanity to not feel like you can trust what you're reading. I mean, I experience it on a daily basis. I barely even want to go on the internet these days because I'm kind of terrified everything I'm reading is AI generated and not real. And what do I trust? Um, so I think when we enter a world where there's a little bit more regulation and a little bit more standards around AI usage in publishing, where similar to the kind of social media concept of you have to have the endorsed label um, on a post, on a sponsored post or something, I would be surprised if we don't end up in an era where articles and novels and everything need some sort of signifier if AI was involved in some capacity. And even if that is the case, like I think that is a much better outcome for readers to understand that we're in a transparent industry than the alternative of the ability for people who don't have their readers' best interest in mind to kind of pull the wool over their eyes. So yeah, I think it's just not ethical to not be honest about how you came about the content.
Yeah, and I think that kind of shows that deception is kind of what it comes down to, and readers will not trust a publisher if they use AI to create work. So we actually are on the 10-minute mark. We only
Mhm.
have 10 minutes left in this meeting. So let's try to keep this last question as short as we can, but maybe like a minute each. You guys have both touched on this a little bit in your past responses, but for this question, what should be disclosed in creative work versus scholarly work, and why? And also, what would be the minimum standard in disclosing this? Either it would be interesting if one of you guys took the creative work side and the other took the scholarly work side, just to kind of get your takes on the differences between each of them.
Claire, if it's okay with you, I can take creative work. Okay. Um, so AI again is a very interesting tool because it puts out things that come across as really polished, really wonderful, and really intelligent. But oftentimes it presents users with bias, untrue or fabricated facts and claims and data. So that's something to consider always, and I think it's another reason why it should always be disclosed. Is readers need to know that there might be some onus on their own fact checking. But when it comes to creative work, you're dealing less with data and you're dealing with ideas. And in that case, you really face a lot of that bias that comes up. Even if you give AI a prompt or if you give them the full piece and you say, hey, can you polish this? It could really misinterpret what you were intending, or it could pick up on one thing and sort of make that the central piece of what the writing is. And so you find, and I see this happen, you find a lot of bias, a lot of, offensive topics and language and things like that kind of being thrown in because AI is not aware and the things that it has been fed maybe aren't, as sensitive as we would like to be and as a lot of editors in the creative field are. And so it again becomes a lot of the onus on the author to, at the end of the day, take responsibility, read through, and make sure that what they're putting out is their intention. But when you work with creative work, I think that it should always be disclosed, again, which ways AI was being used, and really paying attention to the fact that the work that you produced was you came up with the outline, you came up with the plot devices and the movement of the story, and AI was, the collaborator, but not the main contributor.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And Claire, what's your take on scholarly work?
Yeah, I would take scholarly many steps further than creative. I think creative work, you have that flexibility to um, use AI as a brainstorming tool and a creative tool. And I do think still disclosure is necessary. But when I was thinking through the implications of not disclosing how you use AI in scholarly work, like especially from like medical journal perspective or things that are genuinely impacting public health and welfare and science, the field of science. I would go as far as to say, like, I think there should be standards for disclosing all of the prompts you put in into whatever model you're using, right? So if a researcher is using ChatGPT to analyze data, which is a huge time saver, right? I think it's a huge development for the scholarly community to be able to feed data and understand it quicker and get research out faster. I think that's all amazing. But how you interact with the data, I think, needs to be disclosed, and how you landed on your conclusions needs to be revealed if you were using AI as a way to do that. So I think as much as you can can disclose, you should, from a scholarly perspective.
That's interesting. It feels like they're kind of both on the each end, because one is the creation and then the other is really results based. So I find that really interesting. And so it looks like we won't have time for the lightning round, but we will do the one sentence recommendation. It's basically a going forward in what would you recommend a press implement, basically, as far as AI and disclosing authorship and how far it would go. So just give me one sentence for your recommendation. It could be either for the GWJEP or just in a generalized statement. And either of you could go first, whichever wants to go first.
Where would you like to?
Sure. Mine is take the time to educate yourself on AI tools to understand when's the right time to use them, how to use them ethically, and when to disclose them. I think education is key right now to learn about this topic and keep up with how it's constantly changing.
Okay, that's great. And Cecilia?
Yeah, similar to Claire, I think that education is really key. And so I would recommend at this point, as we're still very much learning AI and trying to figure out what it can do and what it should do, you focus on sort of more the mechanical aspects of how AI can help you, but keep the authorship with the humans, or keep human-based authorship, and always disclose when AI is being used because it really is important, especially in the scholarly field, to build that trust and that reputation.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So to wrap up, um, I would say the three main takeaways from this is that there are always ethical implications when using AI to create work, whether it's creative or scholarly or for business. It can be a great tool, but it can't replace human authorship. And that's why transparency is the key. And AI does have an impact on dissemination of knowledge and creativity. That seems to be a very large factor, as well as just educating ourselves on AI and staying up to date with AI as it evolves. Um, okay, and it looks like that's the end of our discussion. The GWJEP can be found on multiple avenues. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and our journal is based on Manifold. It's hosted on that website. We are a peer-reviewed, student-led journal. And we thank you for joining us. And I thank the panelists here for joining us for such a thoughtful and meaningful conversation on AI and authorship. Thank you guys for watching.